All right, it's Sunday, the day after the NFL draft. Welcome to the Krug Show, brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Steph Sanchez is in the house. We're going to break it all down. Join us. Come aboard. All right, we get it rolling on a Sunday, the day after the draft. Yesterday was a busy day over here on the Krug Show. Lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of NFL draft talk, and it continues on this Sunday with Steph Sanchez, one of the top Niner content creators. She has her own channel. She does her own content creation, and she has been stolen from probably more than anybody during this draft cycle because we all went to her list to see who the Niners had met with. And it's not just a list; it's like a detailed file where you can tell, who went and when they met with them and that kind of thing. And if you say, well, why do we care? Why do we care? Well, the 49ers, a lot of the draft season's about who are they going to take? Who are they going to take? What are they interested in? And I think that more than anything is probably probably the most accurate barometer or accurate gauge you can get of who the Niners may be interested in is a lot of time, or any team really for that matter, is who they met with and who they're showing interest in, because there's only so much time. So I really think it's been an incredibly valuable tool. I know I looked at it the last 2 years coming into this year, and like 24 guys out of, let's say, roughly 100 in 2 cycles wound up with the Niners. So that's a pretty high percentage hit rate for meetings. Anyway, Steph is with us, and we're going to chop it all up and break it all down. Steph, good to see you. Thanks for jumping onto the Krug Show on this Sunday.
Yeah, Larry, thanks for having me. And, happy to learn that a lot of people have been using my tracker. It's been a good resource. Every year I try to make it a little bit better, add some more detail on some of these players. And yeah, this year, of course, was another good year for the tracker.
Well, what'd you think, just, without me leading you in any direction, just, Niner draft? What'd you think?
Yeah, if I had to give it a grade, I'd probably say B minus. I loved the first 2 days of the draft for them, just addressing their needs right away. You could tell that, yeah, obviously they needed to improve their defense, but the run defense was so atrocious last year. And you could tell they went into this draft knowing that they needed to get guys to improve that. And immediately they did with their first 2 picks. It really struck me as like a type that they were looking for. Mykel Williams being the edge setting guy, then Alfred Collins with those long arms being able to, split, the offensive linemen. So I think he's going to be a great asset as well. Then you got CJ West, so their line improved drastically through this draft. I will say there was a certain point in the draft, it might have been around the time that they start letting Kyle make some picks, that it kind of lost momentum for me just a bit. And I know a lot of people are talking about, well, some of these picks were reaches. If I just could argue against that point, it's like, I think fit is more important than anything else. And the 49ers have shown us so many times that they value these guys differently than the consensus. And let's not forget that the consensus comes from mock drafts. It comes from draft analysts. It comes from guys who look at the entire class, 300 players, and say, out of all these 300 plus players, where do these guys rank? Well, the 49ers only had 200 or so draftable grades on some of these guys. So take out 100 players or so from that list of draft eligible players, and that's how you get their list, right? And yes, they value other things, I think, more so than other teams do. And so that's why you get all these weird picks that maybe feel like reaches, but they get their guys, and I think I could see a vision for a lot of these guys, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So yeah, overall, I was happy with this draft. I'd give it a B minus.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, Mykel Williams is, whether you like Shamar Stewart or if you like Mykel Williams, I think both guys were guys that had, they're more trait-based draft choices than production-based. Some would argue that Shamar had greater production than Mykel because he led A&M in pressures this year. Other people would argue, no, Mykel had greater production than Shamar because he was stronger against the run. Shamar had 10 more tackles. Mykel had better sack production. What do you think? I mean, do you look at those guys similarly? Do you think that if Mykel had been gone, they would have gone immediately to Shamar? How did you contrast and compare Shamar Stewart and Mykel Williams going into the draft?
Yeah, it's interesting you kind of put them in a similar category because, pre-draft I did as well, from the sense that, yes, they're both low production kind of guys. Shamar Stewart, obviously the more athletically gifted of the two, although Mykel does have some to offer there as well. But I saw Mykel as the safer of the two, and I'll tell you why. Because Mykel has the higher floor. With how good he is at setting the edge, his run defense is already going to get himself on the field on Sunday. Shamar, I had no idea how there was going to be a path for him to be a day one starter if he had so much that he had to figure out. That was my concern with Shamar. And so Mykel, I think, is immediately going to be able to get on the field on these base downs. And since the draft, I think we've heard a little bit more about what their vision for Mykel is. And they talk about his ability to line up inside as well and be able to beat guards. That's something they like about him a lot. One name, I think it was on KNBR actually, Kyle and John talking about Mykel, they mentioned Eric Armstead. And so they don't have similar profiles as far as, body type and all that. But if you just talk about the role that Eric Armstead had on that defensive line, having that inside-outside versatility, I envision, and just based on what they said as well, that he's going to be that guy for the 49ers. He's going to maybe kick inside on those passing down situations where they know they've seen him have success over guards. So, yeah, I would say that I like the Mykel pick more so than I would have liked the Shamar Stewart pick. And thank God he was there at 11.
It's interesting, too. I saw pictures of Mykel at the facility with George Kittle, and I'm thinking this is the only tight end in the league that's going to like this guy, because Mykel Williams just destroys tight ends. And some of the footage of some of his best highlights, I thought, at Georgia, it just showed. I mean, he just takes these 240, 250-pound tight ends and just throws them away. So I think it's going to be interesting to watch what Mykel Williams can do. Clearly, though, stopping the run was a big part of what the Niners, I would imagine if Robert Saleh were our guest, he would say, hey, we got to stop the run. We got to win on first and second down. We can talk about third down all we want, but if we can't win on first and second down, we're never going to get to third and long. What did you think of the second round pick? Because to me, this is where this draft kind of hinges. If this guy, shows the kind of talent or fulfills the potential that I think most people see in him, I think this potentially could be a very, very good draft. But I think it's a kind of an if. I think Alfred Collins, 6'6", 330 pounds. If he is awesome, I mean, to me, this seems like a boom or a bust. This guy's either going to be awesome and just a dominant, monster in the middle, or he's going to have a hard time, staying healthy because guys are all over his legs and he spends a lot of time injured. What do you think of the Collins pick?
Honestly, this is my favorite pick of the draft for
really?
the 49ers, because having watched him in the pre-draft process, he was one of my favorite defensive tackles. And maybe it's just the type of defensive tackles that I like to watch. I like to see that all-out effort. I like to see guys not just absorb the blocks, can they get through them? And he is someone who can split those double teams all the time. He has very active hands. He does a great job disengaging. Excellent run defender. And just like Mykel, really long arms, 34-plus-inch arms for him. So he has the size. He has the arm length. He's a really good tackler. So both of these guys, like we we're saying, just right off the bat, going to be able to improve their run defense. And he doesn't miss a lot of tackles either. His tackle to miss tackle ratio last season was 55-2. So that's another thing. The last 2 years of 49ers dealt with missed tackles quite a lot. And you need to have that first line of defense be way better than it was last year. And I think they did that. Alfred Collins, I think, is going to be great. And as far as durability, Larry, like he played 64 of 65 games. I know there was some concern about, him having a boot on at his pro day, but that was just a calf strain. So pretty minor. He didn't participate, of course, at his pro day, but, the 49ers obviously feel confident that he's going to, be ready for rookie minicamp, training camp, and all that.
He just seems like, a guy that just has some incredibly dominant traits. I mean, you're talking about this is one of the biggest body defensive linemen in this draft. I mean, this is a real boom or bust guy, I think. I look at CJ West as very, very, very safe. I look at Collins as a little bit riskier because of the frame, but it's also really tantalizing because of the frame.
They need those big guys.
Yeah, I mean, if Alfred, I don't even know who I would compare him to, but I mean, that's kind of 6'6", 332 with athleticism. I mean, that's hard to. This is one of the biggest, guys who moves well I think I've ever seen. I mean, this guy reminds me of like Leon Lett, but Leon Lett was like 280, 285. This guy's 332.
Yeah, he's very explosive, and you see it on his tape. Like and another thing that I like about defensive tackles, and this is maybe just one of those overlooked traits, is like if the play is happening away from them, what sort of effort do you see from these guys to try to get to that play and try to get their nose in there? Well, you see it from Alfred Collins. He could chase down a play if he needs to. And that's not something you always see from defensive tackles, especially these bigger guys, because they're just like, they kind of scoot over there at their own pace. But Collins just plays with all out effort. I love to see that from him. And that's just the type of energy that they needed from the interior of their defensive line. So I'm really excited about this pick. And I have to say, like, again, my favorite pick in this draft
is Collins. Yeah. I mean, I hope you're right. Because that one, if that hits, man, this is really exciting. I like the next pick the most. Nick Martin. I thought that was an incredible steal. Now it's funny because I know some people who don't like it, and I'm like, I've been kind of cocky about it. I'm like, hey man, you guys are going to look really bad at some point. You might want to tone it down. I'm ripping this guy, but I just am a real believer, Steph. When you have the total package, I think you're a slam dunk prospect. This guy has production. He's got speed. He's got strength. He's got instincts. I know he's coming off an injured year. I know he's a little bit undersized, but I think this is the new norm at linebacker. On that second level defender is going to be more like 225 and not 235, not 245 or 265 like back in the day. So to me, I think when we look back at this draft, you're going to say, wow, Nick Martin was a great pick. I just really believe in him. Other people I've heard say, you know what, he's going to get engulfed, short arms. They question the competition in the Big 12 and, worried about the injury situation and didn't like the pick. I really liked it. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was a little early, but again, I think that perception comes from me being able to get him in the 7th round of some mock drafts, right? Mock drafts are not real life. And so the 49ers obviously thought this was a good spot for him. And you can see how his profile fits what the 49ers typically look for: the athleticism, the speed. He never gives up on a play. I believe, when I joined you on KNPR, leading up to the draft, we talked about some linebacker options, right? We talked about Pooh Paul, another guy who plays with his hair on fire. That's exactly the type of linebackers the 49ers look for. So Nick Martin definitely fits that. He has the vision to work through traffic. He can work as a spy. His floor is that he could be a good special teams player as well. He was a team captain too. So I like what he has to bring to this team. I'm not worried about him being undersized because I agree with you. I think that we're going to see a bit of a shift where defensive players are going to start to get a little bit more compact, a little smaller, because they got to be able to keep up with the speed that is now in the NFL NFL on offense. So yeah, I think that's where the NFL is going. And the 49ers have been slightly ahead of the curve when it comes to linebackers. And, Fred Warner was one of the first of his kind. And then everyone kind of followed that same archetype of linebackers, right? And so now we're seeing that new trend of smaller guys. Nick Martin is that. He does need to improve on his coverage a little bit, but Fred has that down pat. So maybe Fred could take care of that, and Nick Martin could do what he does best. As far as the injury, I understand the concerns, but he participated in the Senior Bowl, he participated at the Combine, he participated at his pro day, so he's been healthy. And not only that, he was one of the faster linebackers, right? 4.53 speed. So I think he's fine and he's moved on from that. But if you look at his production, before the injury, 2023 was a tremendous year for him. 140 tackles, 16 tackles for loss, 6 sacks. So that's where him being a spy and what he could do around the line becomes intriguing. And so, yeah, I like this pick. And again, I think it fits exactly what they look for in guys.
I do too. I think, and I think this is the trend. I mean, if you before the draft, we were talking about hey, we did a mock one time and I forget who was on, maybe it was Chapman or somebody. And we were talking about, let's have a theme. And I said, my theme on defense in the rebuild here is go with a bigger defensive front line that can absorb the opponent's offensive line, and then smaller, faster, more mobile, run around, almost jumbo safety like linebackers, and a lot of them. A lot of second. To me, that's the build of the NFL defense that you're looking for is gigantic line across the board that absorbs the offensive line so they can't climb to that second level. All kinds of second level speed, and then preferably, if you can, corners that love to absolutely come up and truck people and hit, and preferably a couple John Lynch type hitters at safety. And you got one in Mustafa, at least when he gets healthy. We'll see about if they have another one. That leads us to Upton Stout. And I thought the funniest moment of this draft, based on what I've seen, was the phone call that Lynch and Shanahan and York had with Upton Stout. And he's just like, let's get it. Let's get it. He called everybody coach. He's talking to Jed York. He's like, all right, coach. All right, coach. The whole thing was pretty funny, but I love, you got to know what works, and what works in the NFL and in big time football is you got to have some cockiness and some swagger. If you're going to play corner, you got to believe that you're better than the other guy. You got to believe that even though you just got burned, you'll never get burned again. I mean, these guys have got to have alpha confidence and just, you know what I'm saying? And it's to hear this guy's super alpha confidence. I loved it, man. Shanahan was like, I love hearing this. It's like, that's the way you want your corner to sound. What do you think it's Upton Stout?
Man, I got to be honest. I hadn't watched him a whole lot before the 49ers drafted him. And so, after day 2, I went and watched him, and you see exactly all of the things, all the words they used to describe him, right? Warren Ball, who was the area scout that, I got to imagine probably slammed the table for him, said he has the heart of a lion, right? And they said he's feisty. You see that in his tape. You also see the speed, 4.44 speed. At the gauntlet, he tapped out at 19.47 miles an hour, right? So he's got speed. He loves to be involved in the run game. He's physical. He's a good tackler. He just has, he wants to be part of the play. And with the speed that he has, he's going to be able to be involved on a lot of these run plays. And so that's one of the things that impressed me the most. He's pretty sticky in coverage too. Just the speed, I think, helps him out with that. He plays a lot bigger than he actually is, which that's also impressive. He doesn't get targeted a whole lot. I think in the game against Jackson State, I believe that I watched, he was barely targeted in that one. I also watched him against Alabama, and he was targeted a couple of times, but he had some really good stops as well in the run game, and that's against Alabama. So that kind of goes to show, he's not afraid, right? He doesn't care who he lines up against. He has that energy, that tenacity, and confidence to have success at the NFL level. And so it'll be interesting to see how the 49ers use him. They got a number of corners already that are more than capable. Lenore, Bernardo Green. And so, is he going to be competing for Darrell Luter? Well, I like Upton Stout and what he's made of so far to believe that he's going to see some time on the field.
It's funny. He's just like, small, feisty, tough, super explosive. To me, this is one of the more interesting draft picks. Why? Because you have a great slot corner, maybe one of the league's best in Demo Lenore. And you just drafted a corner who really looks like a starter, but he also really looks like maybe only a slot player and not an outside player. So, Steph, what do you think? Do you think this means, and Demo endorsed it. So do you think they talked to Demo and said, hey, look, you're great in the slot, but you're so too valuable. We need you outside. You think Demo's outside and Demo, Stout, and Renardo are the starters? Because Trey Brown seemed like an odd starter to me.
Yeah, I wonder that as well. And I think if you look at the other corners that they brought in, there were some guys who had inside-outside versatility, and there were some guys who were exclusively outside guys. And so then you do start to wonder, okay, what's the 49ers vision for some of these guys? Well, with Upton Stout, I think you're right. Like his size, he's probably going to be exclusively more of a slot guy, right? So is he going to be the backup there, or do they kind of envision that he's going to be that guy and then you can keep Lenore on the outside, right? Because they got a bargain for Lenore when they did, and they got that deal for him. And so now they can have him be the guy they want him to be on the outside, and he already got his money, so they don't have to worry about paying him this outside corner money, right? So, maybe that's the vision for Stout. I mean, he has the speed certainly to, keep up with some of these slot receivers that are now in the game. And the one thing is, like, he does sometimes lack recovery speed. So if he loses his guy, he's gonna have a harder time, getting back to him. But he could chase down plays and things like that. So that's something you always like to see. They'll try him out at that spot, I'm sure. One thing's for sure, like they have options at nickel. They have options outside, so they could really use these guys however they see fit. And who knows? We'll see what Saleh thinks about all these guys.
Their first pick on day 3 was CJ West. What do you think? I mean, do you think that is it possible that Mykel Williams, Alfred Collins, and CJ West all start next to Nick Bosa week 1? What do you think?
Yeah, so I asked this question to Croc yesterday because I had the same thought. It was like, CJ West, does he project to be more of a backup and a rotational guy, or do we envision that he would start? Because there is a little bit of an overlap in just like where Alfred Collins and CJ West have lined up. I mean, West does have a lot of versatility in college. He lined up nose tackle, 2I, 3T. So he has that experience. Collins as well has lined up in a lot of different spots, but I think where they're both best at is kind of over the center, right? So it'll be interesting to see how they kind of work those guys and where they have them both on the line. If I had to guess, just CJ West being the more stout and thick guy of the two, he's probably going to be the nose tackle. And it's no coincidence that he gets comped to DJ Jones, right? So I think we see a similar role for CJ West in this defense, and maybe I would imagine Alfred Collins probably going to be over some guards, and that's still a good spot for him as well. So yeah, I could envision both of those guys starting in the NFL, and We'll see how the 49ers use him. But I do love CJ West. I mean, again, he fits the profile of what they used to have in Jones. Stout, 6'1", 316 pounds. He's explosive. He can also split some double teams and create some disruption, but he's also a good run defender, right? So he's going to be able to clog up the middle. And man, with the line that they're going to have, I have a hard time imagining teams having a lot of success in the run game. So that's going to make third downs a lot easier for them. I think that's the hope. That's exactly what they wanted to do with this draft. And with the first 4 or 5 picks of this draft, they most certainly addressed the run defense.
If I ever get in a bar fight, I want CJ West by my side. That guy is just ridiculous. His hands are the most violent thing I think I've ever seen. I mean, his hands remind me of just the most violent hands I've ever seen watching football for 30 years. he's just got these stone hands, and he rips guys around. We saw it in the practices at Frisco, Texas, before the East-West game. You saw it on the All-Star circuit. You saw it on his film. He's short and he's got short arms, but man, this guy's got violent hands, and he's like DJ Jones with a little bit more angry disposition. This guy's nasty. I love CJ West. I was thinking, man, I'd love to see him. I saw mocked, right around the third round, fourth round. And I thought, that would be a great fourth round pick. But as you say, you never feel like, you're actually going to get the guy at that point. To me, that was an amazing pick. I think he's going to be fantastic. They finally went offense with their fifth pick, Jordan Watkins. And to me, this was a really interesting pick because I like Jordan Watkins a lot in the draft process, but I thought he was listed as an undrafted player, and then he was listed maybe as a seventh round guy as the thing progressed. But he was clearly a climber. I just loved him because I thought he played in a big conference. He ran a great 40. He had great production. I saw that Arkansas game. That was an amazing, you don't see that in the SEC very much. He had 8 for 254 and 5 touchdowns. I just thought he was one of the most underrated receivers I saw all year. So I love this pick. But in the fourth round, it did seem like a reach. I was thinking more like sixth round. But to me, it's not really about the round as much as it's just about picking winners, because there's a lot of busts in every round. But I think they hit on this guy. I like Jordan Watkins quite a bit, even though he looks more like a running back than a receiver. But I think Niner fans are going to love his explosiveness.
Yeah, and as you mentioned, he does have a smaller frame, so 5'11", 196 pounds, but he is super fast, 4.37 speed. He does well tracking the football. He has a good feel for zone. I asked Croc this. I was like, he might project as more of a slot receiver at the next level due to his size, but then Croc was like, well, and I think he even mentioned Kyle Shanahan talking about how he envisions guys being inside versus outside. And he says, well, if you're outside, you got to be able to win a couple different ways, or like one of two ways. And speed is one of those ways. So Jordan Watkins has that. And he lined up outside, at Ole Miss. So maybe the 49ers do feel like he could be a guy that could line up outside and still have success at the NFL level, even despite, him being slightly smaller. But because he can win with speed, he can beat those outside corners. And yeah, he led SEC in receiving touchdowns last year. I think it was your son Kevin who posted this stat: 153.8 quarterback passer rating when he's targeted. That's pretty good, right? That led all draft eligible wide receivers. So there's upside with this pick. And so yeah, when it first happened, I was like, okay, how does Jacob Cowing now fit into all this? Because we've been waiting to see more of Cowing. We didn't get to see a lot of him last year. Is he finally going to get an opportunity, or does Jordan Watkins kind of cloud that room even more and lose some opportunities for Cowing? I don't know. But if Watkins, if Kyle sees him as being a guy who can win outside, then, Cowing maybe is safe and there's not too much of an overlap there. They both have speed for sure. But speed is never a bad thing, whether it is, at the slot or outside.
Here's a little video of Watkins. He's interesting because he's, on that Ole Miss team, they had Trey Harris, they had Juice Wells, and he was kind of the third guy. But then when Trey Harris went down, they kind of needed him to step up. And he's just a big play guy. And you could see, that's kind of a pros type offense they ran. And I'm eager to see what he can do. This to me was one of the more underrated players in the country. This guy led the SEC in touchdown receptions. That's a pretty nice, I don't know. I was a fan of this guy before the draft. So I'm always a big fan of guys they get in the draft that I liked before the draft. So, a lot of times I'll find out about some of these guys after the draft, and I'll become fans after I find out about them. But here's a guy that I really liked early on, and it's a little high for sure, but I think he's going to me, he complements what they don't have. They don't have a 4-3 burner outside of Cowing. And Cowing had a hard time, getting on the field. So if this guy could give them a vertical threat, especially without Ayuk, man, that would really help. What did you think of the Oregon running back?
Yeah, so I hadn't watched too much of Jordan James either. And, maybe some people thought that was a bit of a reach. There were a lot of really good running backs in this class and some that, maybe others would have pegged as a better fit for the 49ers. Not better fit, but some that people liked a little more than maybe Jordan James. But I couldn't help but notice Dane Brugler had him as his RB7 in his draft guide, and that is a lot higher than even some of the guys who got drafted before Jordan James. And a player who got picked after him, Jadon Blue, he was someone that I think definitely would have fit the 49ers as well. So the 49ers had a choice between those two at that point. They picked Jordan James. And here's one stat that I really like that I think is a great contrast between those two packs. Jadon Blue had like 9 fumbles in his career, right? It's quite a lot. And that's with not as many carries as some of these other guys. Jordan James protects the football, 0 career fumbles. And I got to knock on wood while I got it around me, Larry, because I don't want to jinx the young man. But that's a good high floor, and that's good upside to have for any running back. He's also good in pass protection. That's going to earn him some opportunity, I'm sure. When I watched him, the thing that stands out is that he's very slippery. He could make the first guy miss. He doesn't have breakaway speed. So that's kind of where he falls short. 4.64 RES score, not very athletic. But I like being able to use him in maybe short yardage situations, red zone situations where he's going to be able to at least get through the first line of defenders. And that's really all you need because, he's not going to be a big play threat. And that's different from Isaac Orendo. That's different from Christian McCaffrey. And so this kind of feels almost like the role of Jordan Mason, just slightly, just someone who can make guys miss and not going to be your home run hitter, but just something that, obviously with Jordan Mason having been traded, this is a guy who's going to be able to fit that role just a little bit.
It's funny. I looked at it as he's the Elijah Mitchell because
I like that too.
Because Elijah Mitchell, kind of got what was blocked, had good instincts up in there, right? He actually had a great 40 time. I think it was like 4.37, but he didn't play to that 40 time, but he had great instincts up in there and he never fumbled. This guy had 0 fumbles. And I think that's the thing. I think that might be the reason that Jordan Mason isn't here is because I think he put the ball on the carpet a little bit. He also just needed a change of scenery. There was some kind of miscommunication going on. But I kind of look at this as this is the Elijah Mitchell finish games. Don't ever fumble, get what's blocked. That, we'll see. I mean, that's kind of what I took away from the Jordan James thing. To me, he'd better be good because there are so many good running backs in this draft. And if you whiffed on your running backs, that would be bad because this draft, I think, had so many good options. What about to me, where this thing went a little bit off the rails, maybe, is the next couple picks. So they went for Marquise Siegel in the 5th round, a safety from K-State. Now, he's got great measurables. He's a corner who runs in the 4.3s, who they've moved to safety. So, in the modern game, you got to have a safety that can cover. So, having a safety that can cover like a corner with 4.3 speed is never a bad thing if he's ready to play and can contribute. It seemed like a little bit like we're smarter than you kind of a pick. When you're taking somebody that's, a 50 or 70, ranking picks down the board, it's a little bit like we know more than you. And I never, that's kind of a low percentage play in my opinion. So, I don't know. Did you have a thought? Did you even know who Marquise Siegel was going into the draft? And what do you think of it now that you've had a chance to maybe look at it a little bit?
Yeah, I didn't, but that's okay. I mean, usually when you get to these day 3 guys, it's like a lot of these guys you don't hear much of. And it's not just the 49ers. Like there were other teams making picks that I'm like, I hadn't heard this guy, hadn't seen him in any mocks, so you start to get in that territory where teams are just picking guys that they like, that they fit their system, that they see upside in. And you can understand why they see some upside in Siegel. the versatility that he brings, just him having been a former corner and him saying he can play free safety, strong safety, nickel, dime. Like, I think that is something that the 49ers is going to be attracted to, just kind of feels like a chess piece they can use, right? And, quite honestly, Larry, when the pick was made, I was like, okay, fine, this is good. I mean, they needed a safety. But after the draft, when we learned that Malik Mustafa re-injured his ACL, and it wasn't a re-tear, right? I think originally I thought it was a re-tear. It's not a re-tear. So that's good, I guess. But after learning that, thought maybe they should have prioritized safety a little bit more. And the 5th round, I mean, it's pretty late, or 7th round. Oh no, this was 5th round still. So yeah, it's a little late, I think, to address safety, but maybe they're not as concerned about the Mustafa injury. I don't know. But Jair Brown, I mean, didn't give me a ton of confidence last year, right? So hopefully Siegel, I think, could fill in some role while Mustafa is out. And I think there's some upside there. He's speedy. He's rangy. He had 3 interceptions last year with Kansas State, 7 career interceptions. And so last year he led the team in interceptions. He was also a team captain. So I think there's special teams upside with him as well. He plays clean. He didn't have any coverage penalties in 2024. So, I think at this point in the draft, it's a fine pick. I agree. There were some other guys that had the name recognition that you're like, oh, why did they get that guy? But I see what they like about Siegel.
No, I mean, the speed is great. And if he can cover, that's great. You need a free safety who can cover. I'd love to know what what Gus Bradley and Robert Saleh think about, Jair Brown, because I agree with you. He showed some regression last year. But I also think he's a pretty good prospect. And, I wouldn't be shocked if they think that they can turn him into something. The Niners also brought in Jason Pinnock in free agency and Richie Grant. And I know some people talked about those guys as special teamers. I think Richie Grant is still young enough to maybe I don't look at him as a special teamer. I think he's a guy that can play from scrimmage. And Pinnock was a corner at Pittsburgh who, is very physical. But I would imagine Siegel, if with the injury to Mustafa, may have a chance to compete to start. So and that could be a really interesting, draft pick right there, because it looks like a reach, but as I said, he may wind up starting. And obviously that would change the dynamic of how people viewed him. The next pick was totally baffling. They go with a quarterback in Kurtis Rourke from Indiana. Now, there's a lot, first of all, if you like a quarterback, the old saying is you can never overdraft a quarterback if you think he's a good quarterback. So obviously a 7th round pick is a flyer. But I mean, this guy's, they call him the Maple Missile. He's from Canada. He's in Ohio. He started out University of Ohio, and he was good there. He was good at Ohio, had a whole career, finished up at Indiana. Tall pocket passer. I've heard a couple people say he's really, really accurate. So he did have a 69% completion percentage. He had a 29-5 touchdown to interception ratio this year. To me, I'm not interested in any pocket passers anymore without mobility. I just think the athletes are too good in the NFL. I never again want to see a quarterback without some mobility. This guy doesn't really have any. Outside of that, he might be a pretty decent pocket passer, and he may be an interesting guy who probably maybe pushes Tanner Mordecai off the roster. Or how do you see the Niner quarterback room? It's kind of an interesting room right now. I mean, you got Brock, you got Mac Jones. Mac Jones thinks of himself as a starter. You got this guy who's a kind of a little bit more like Mac Jones, kind of a pocket passer. Then you got Mordecai, who's a little bit more like Brock, who's a runner, 4.4 speed. What do you think of the four guys in that room right now?
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting mix. The one thing with Rourke is that he's dealt with a lot of injuries, tore his ACL. When is he going to be available, right? Well, it sounds like he could be available around training camp, and that's good news. But do the 49ers maybe redshirt him on purpose, even if, they know he'll be healthy at some point this season? Like, do they do that just to kind of, let him wait in the wings a little bit, and maybe they get another look at Tanner Mordecai, see what they have in him, but they don't necessarily have to make this decision right away. So I think redshirting him is an option. And they've done that with some players before, right? I could see why Kyle Shanahan would like him. I mean, you mentioned it. He is a bit more of a pocket passer. He's got a big frame. He's 6'4", 220 pounds. He's tough. He hangs in the pocket. He does have a pretty good deep ball. He drops passes in the breadbasket quite a bit, right? That's nice. But I am concerned about just the injury history overall with him. It's not just the ACL. He's had shoulder injuries. He's had other stuff with his knee. So, like, this is just something that he's dealt with his entire college career. Which I don't like, because we already did that with Jimmy Garoppolo. And that's not even to say that this guy ever becomes a starter on this team. I think we know, Brock's going to be that. But, I just don't like the injury. And I don't want to call it a risk, because he's a 7th round pick. So it's just a flyer at this point. But again, like there were other picks that were available to be made there, other positions that maybe they could have addressed there. But they always like to get a quarterback. So this is them just doing that, filling a checkbox, I guess. He's also an older rookie. He'll be 25 in week 1. So how much time can you really, experiment and see what you have in a guy who's already 25 going into his first year? And then the thought of redshirting him, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. This one doesn't have as much upside, I think, as maybe another player they could have gotten here. But they draft a quarterback every year.
Well, and it's one of those things. If this guy spends any time being a significant quarterback for the Niners, it's a steal of a deal, because it's a 7th round pick. It's interesting though. It's interesting, for sure. Makes you wonder. And I'll say this: this guy throws a nice ball. So, and he's a big guy with a nice arm. So we'll see. Maybe they hit on something. I mean, I'll say this: if you hit on Brock Purdy and you had a guy in the room who was like, hey, you know what? I kind of like this guy. And that guy liked Brock Purdy, I'd probably say, okay, let's do it. So who knows how the whole scouting thing came together on Rourke. The next pick, I think, is the sleeper pick. I'm a big Connor Colby guy. Now, people say, why? He's got short arm guards don't do much. It's because I think they coach it up at Iowa as good as almost anywhere. This guy was a 4-year starter at Iowa. They run the ball a lot. I mean, it's a really well-coached football team. They have this is a guy who fits in a zone-heavy scheme. He's kind of a nasty, get after it run blocker. And only thing standing between him and a starting job is Ben Bartch. So I'll say this: I think Connor Colby starting at left guard is a viable option. Maybe I'm wrong, but we'll see. What do you think? What do you think of Colby in that selection?
I mean, at worst, like, he has the ability to be like your swing guard, someone who can play both sides of the line. Yeah, I think he is gonna have an opportunity to compete at that left guard spot. I mean, I'd give him a shot. He was first team All Big Ten in 2024, and you said it. I mean, Iowa, that's such a great system for offensive linemen, for tight ends, because they know how to block. Run blocking is their bread and butter, right? And he has a ton of experience, 54 games played between his 4 years at Iowa. He's very athletic, 9.50 RAS score. And so, yeah, I think this is a good fit. I think is almost like good value for the 49ers this late in the draft. And for everyone that was clamoring for the 49ers to get an offensive lineman, I think Connor Colby will prove to be a pretty good value add, on late day 3 of the draft. He's going to be a solid backup, I think, for many years in the league.
Like that one. I like that one. And we'll see. I mean, the 49ers last year, struck gold with Dom Pooney, and I think they like Drake Nugent as well. So we'll see if they hit with Connor Colby. The last pick was really baffling. A small school guy who's a return man. They have a return man already, but they went with another return guy. What'd you think of Junior Bergen out of Montana? My first thought is, well, he's probably like some 4-2 burner, but he's not. He's just kind of he's a versatile offensive weapon who's moved from running back to wide receiver, and he's just got kind of a knack as a return guy. Seems like he's almost like a practice squad type pick. But what'd you think of Junior Bergen?
Yeah, I'd have to imagine practice squad is probably in his future for this team, and I think it's the returnability that's probably what gravitated the 49ers to him most, and why he brings some upside. But you're right, like the speed, 4.53 speed is not something that will really constitute a speed at the NFL level. Maybe in the Big Sky Conference, that'll get you by. But yeah, I kind of wonder what his ceiling could even be in the NFL, just given the NFL level talent that he's going to be facing. I mean, of course, like his production as a return man is impressive. 8 career return touchdowns in 2024. He had 3 touchdowns on 10 returned punts. So, I mean, that's a pretty good ratio right there. Also averaged 16.7 yards per punt return. And so, yeah, maybe he'll be more of a slot receiver depth guy. I don't know. Maybe just a practice squad guy that you bring in. Not sure. Just another intriguing thing. He's a former quarterback, so often at Montana, he was the subject of some trick plays, which I don't know if he'll ever have that sort of role for the 49ers. But again, it's the 7th round. You're throwing darts at this point. So they've had some 7th round wide receivers pan out, right? Like Juwan Jennings. But yeah, I don't know, if Bergen's going to ever make an impact.
We'll see. The one thing that we both know is that you never overlook anybody, because the undrafted guys matter as well. And here's my man Raj putting out at RSF 49ers. The Niners officially announced their undrafted players, and these are the guys that they have so far. And we'll see if they add any more. Corey Kiner, running back from Cincinnati. Isaiah Nayer, wide receiver from Nebraska. Drew Moss, guard from Colorado State. Sebastian Valdez, and a defensive tackle from University of Washington. Jacob Robinson, a corner from BYU, and Stone Blanton, linebacker from Mississippi State. You had Jacob Robinson on your show. What can you tell us about Robinson?
Yeah, I mean, I like Robinson. I mean, he pretty much did mention his connection that he had with the 49ers. He had spoken to them a couple times, liked them. He actually met Deommodore Lenoir because they share the same agent. So his agent, flew him out there to Robinson out to Lenoir to meet him. And so he had some impressions on him. And, funny enough, Grant actually tweeted this morning that Jacob Robinson reminds him of Deommodore Lenoir. So I don't know. I'll have to watch a little more. But yeah, I mean, he does have some ball skills to work with as well. He's got some good size to him. So I think, again, as a UDFA, this is a pretty good upside pick. And I'm excited to see how he does at the next level. But yeah, if you guys want to check out that interview, it is on my channel. With Jacob Robinson.
The 2 guys to me that are super intriguing on the list. One is Corey Kiner. I mean, Corey Kiner has a number of really, really interesting stats that Kev, my son, had put out earlier. I kind of retweeted. I think I retweeted a couple of them. Let's see if I can find one of them. But Corey Kiner, basically, the contact balance stuff is off the charts. Now, the 49ers, I mean, it's hilarious. They do this every year. They draft not every year, but they do it a lot. They draft a running back early. That running back gets outperformed by the guy that they add late. In this particular situation, it's Jordan James being drafted early, and it's Corey Kiner being added late. And when you look at Corey Kiner and some of the stuff that's out on him. Now, you mentioned Brugler's a big fan of Jordan James. And so that we noted that before. But James Foster is a draft guy that I had on, and he said there are, and I'm going to share the screen on this one because the footage is off the freaking charts. To me, I love watching running backs that, I can watch running back footage basically all day if they're good. And this is Corey Kiner going back to, maybe there's even some LSU stuff here, but look at the contact balance on this guy. I mean, this guy's, now there's faster backs, there's bigger backs, but just the contact balance, He doesn't want to go down. He doesn't go down. It's like you count the number of guys that he hits before he actually goes down. And that's how it's funny. I mean, that reminds me a little bit of like a Frank Gore,
Yeah.
and maybe just because he's wearing the 21, but also he's just this kind of a smallish, powerful guy that people just kind of bounce off of. But Corey Kiner was a big time athlete, right? A buddy of mine who is a scout in the Midwest and has Ohio as one of his states said he looked at Corey Kiner when Corey Kiner was in high school, and he said Corey Kiner was like Mr. Ohio and was like the number one high school recruit, went to LSU, got kind of caught up in a numbers game at LSU, came back home to play at Cincinnati, and then just lit it up for Cincinnati. The last couple of years, he put up some big numbers, but his contact balance is off the charts. So once again, Bobby T strikes. The Niners, you're too young to know this, but the Niners had McKittrick and Ray Rhodes, and they were great coaches, but they were even better personnel evaluators. And I feel like Bobby T is that now with the Niners. It's like he's a good coach. Don't get me wrong. He's a really good coach, but he is almost better at identifying these running backs. And Mike Shanahan and now Kyle Shanahan could thank, Bobby T for all the great backs that he has found. And this kid Kiner looks pretty damn good.
Yeah, he averaged 91.7 rushing yards per game at Cincinnati, 82 missed tackles forced in 2024. So, that's the big part of his game, and you're seeing it all over, these clips. And, the 49ers did have some firsthand experience with Kiner because since he was at the Shrine Bowl, the 49ers had an offensive assistant coaching running backs at the Shrine Bowl, Mykel Revelez. And so him, and I'm pretty sure Frank Gore was out there as well. Like, they got a really good look at Corey Kiner and, some of the other running backs that were out there at the Shrine Bowl. But I think, that firsthand experience with him is probably what sold him. And so, I think this is a pretty solid UDFA, and just as like the trend we see with the 49ers. Yeah, don't be surprised if this guy maybe does outperform Jordan James in training camp.
I mean, it sounds crazy. I mean, people say, come on, Krug, some undrafted free agent. Nobody drafted this guy is going to beat out our whatever 4th round pick. Well, all I would say is it's happened before, it's happened before. I see Trey Sermon, see Joe Williams, see, I'm not trying to say Jordan James is going to be a bust. I'm just saying, watch out for Corey Kiner. He's probably pretty good. The other guy who's so intriguing, and it's like, once again, my buddies rip me when I get excited about these undrafted guys. But Isaiah Nayer is a really intriguing undrafted free agent. Why? He's 6'4", 220. He's got 35-inch arms and a near 40-inch vertical. I mean, think about the catch radius on somebody who runs. I mean, he runs 4.4 flat, 6'4", 220, 4.4 flat speed with 35-inch arms and 38-inch vertical. That's an amazing group of factors right there. I can't wait to see what this guy looks like this summer.
Yeah, and you do see like the long arms come into play in some of his catches, right? That's going to increase his catch radius, the size as well as a whole. And yeah, I've seen a couple clips, haven't completely dived into him yet, but just seeing some of those clips, he looks pretty impressive so far. I'm actually kind of surprised that he ended up being an undrafted free agent, because I want to say he was at the combine as well. And his RES score is 9.90. So there's a lot of upside to that one as well. I can't wait to see what he looks like in camp.
The other guy that I watched him a lot in college, but I don't know how he's going to fit, but he's a great athlete, is the Niners invited the West Virginia linebacker Ty French to their rookie minicamp, according to Aaron Wilson. And French is an athlete. I'll just say that. I mean, I'm not sure what his fit is. I mean, I believe he was more of a defensive end. But he's not built like a defensive end, so he's probably going to have to transition to some kind of a stacked linebacker position. But that's an interesting player because he was good for the Mountaineers. I mean, he was definitely a good football player, Ty French. Steph, what do you think overall? If I said, give me an over under on the number of defensive starters that the Niners got out of this thing.
Oh man, I mean, I think their first 4 or 5 picks probably going to be starters, right? At the very least, you got Mykel, Alfred Collins, CJ West starting. I think, week 1, like those 3 guys right there, and then there's a really good chance that Nick Martin could maybe be a guy that supplants D Winters, but if not, I mean, he's going to be that third linebacker to come on, which is already a pretty good start for him as well. And just given the Malik Mustafa thing, like we might see Siegel in week 1 too. And so I think this is a great opportunity. I love that Saleh and really the defensive coordinators have always been a little more willing to start these rookies more so than Kyle Shanahan. And so I'm excited to see some of these guys play and get better each and every week. You're going to see some rookie mistakes, I'm sure, but they'll be better for it at the end. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this defense because it's shaping up pretty nicely.
One guy that I forgot to mention that I'm kind of excited about as well as an undrafted guy is this guy, Stone Blanton. Now, I watch a lot of Mississippi football because to me, that's one of the best states in the country for prospects. So this guy played at Mississippi State. Stone Blanton. I mean, it almost sounds like a linebacker from a movie, right? Our inside linebacker is Stone Blanton.
It's an elite name.
It's a great name. It's a great name. But look at this. Look at this game log. I mean, this thing is unbelievable. Egg Bowl against Ole Miss, 14 tackles, 9 assists. Against Missouri, 18 tackles, 15 assists. 9 against Tennessee, slacker that day. 14 against UMass, amazing, 2 solo. 10 against Arkansas, 1 solo. 9 against A&M, 9 against Georgia, 10 against Texas, including a half sack and a forced fumble. 10 against Toledo. I mean, this Stone Blanton. I mean, this guy's 6'2", 230. Junior from Mississippi State who came out. I'm interested to see those are great numbers. I mean, and this guy's not playing for, Little Sisters of the Poor. This is the SEC. This is probably the best league there is. And 124 tackles is a lot of tackles. Can't fake that. To me, that's a guy I'm looking for this summer for sure. I don't know if you've heard anything or saw him or ran into anybody who did along the path. I know you went to the combine or went to the Senior Bowl. Any thoughts on any of these other guys, including the great name Stone Blanton?
Sebastian Valdez is someone who, in the pro day circuit, because I was doing some work trying to figure out who the 49ers had at all these pro days. But, doing my research, Sebastian Valdez was someone that popped out because he turned heads at his pro day. Super athletic. His RAS score was pretty high, 9.28 for him. So, I think scouts took notice then, and of course the 49ers did. They bringing him in as an undrafted free agent. He's a little small, I think, maybe more of a tweener, but I mean, he's depth, right? He's going to be an undrafted free agent, maybe practice squad guy. So yeah, he could be an interesting one as well.
What last thought before we hit a couple supers and bolt for the door? Tim Kawakami, and I'm not using him as an example. I mean, I am using him as an example. I'm not trying to, try to put him out there or, throw his stuff out in public or anything. But he was one of the people that a couple weeks ago was like, yeah, Niners, no chance this year. It's like they're not, it's a 2026 proposition. And I was just kind of in the mindset of like, hey, look, I've never signed off on a season before the draft. You know what I mean? It's like, to me, your chances are a lot of times contingent on what you do or don't do in free agency and the draft. So now that we've had free agency and the draft and the undrafted portion, and you got an idea of where the Niners actually sit, what's a reasonable expectation, Steph, for 2025?
I think it's reasonable to think that by the end of the season, like they'll be competing for a playoff spot, maybe wild card, right? I don't think they're going to blow anyone out of the water. But look, like their offense really not different than it was last year. Really, they only added Luke Farrell, which you could say that's an improvement from the year prior, right? I know a lot of people not happy with the lack of improvements on the offensive line, but the offensive line wasn't as bad as some fans, do make it seem as well. So the offense being the same, you can work with that. It's a good offense. You got a lot of good pieces. Christian McCaffrey is going to be healthy, right? Trent Williams is going to be healthy, right? On the defensive side, that's really the biggest thing that they needed to improve on. It was atrocious last season, as we know. You got Robert Saleh back. That already, like, if Robert Saleh was coaching last year's defense, which it was awful, right? Like we look at the personnel and we're like, that's pretty bad. But if all you did was change the defensive coordinator last year, they'd already be better than 6-10, I think. Because I think Saleh would have been able to do a little bit better with that. And so that alone, Saleh is going to improve this team, this defense quite a bit. Then you add on all the players they brought in to improve the run defense, which was also atrocious last year, right? And so even with just that, what they brought in, the guys that they brought in to improve the defensive line, to improve the run defense, I think it is going to be much improved. And so, yeah, I think the defense is going to be a lot better. You still got Lenore, you still got Fred Warner, you got Nick Bosa, right? So you can work with that. And so, the defense is going to be better. Their schedule, we know, is going to be one of the easiest in the entire NFL. And so, yeah, I think they'll definitely win more than 6 games, and they'll probably be a wild card team if I had to guess right now.
Wild card team. I with their schedule, I think if you said give me some reasonable expectations, I think reasonable expectations is they make the playoffs. How they make the playoffs, I don't know, but I think they make the playoffs. And my guess is they make the playoffs and win a playoff game. After that, do they win 2? I don't know. But if you said, what are my expectations for the year? That would be them. They make the playoffs. They develop, their defense a little bit. They make the playoffs and they win a playoff game. If they do all those things, I think they're, if they, I think there'll be a lot of positives along the way if they make the playoffs and win a playoff game. I think if you're asking for more than that, that's probably more of a projection based on hope. And I understand that there's a lot of Niner fans. I don't want to kill Niner fans' hope, but that's how I'd say it. If you could make the playoffs and win a playoff game, give your fans a second playoff game, I think that would be probably what I would view as success for 2025. Steph, awesome. Thanks for coming on. We appreciate that. We love doing the dual stream. Promote anything that you have. I know, you have your own channel and you're doing your own Niner projects and that kind of thing. Tell us, how often do you stream? And if people are checking you out for the first time via the Krug Show, when would you like them to check you out?
Yeah, well, with the draft over, I'm going to have a bit of an identity crisis, to be honest with you. I'm going to be like, what do I do now? But no, there's definitely going to be some more content on my channel throughout this week, breaking down the draft. Tomorrow, for example, I always do a show every Monday and every Friday. That's for sure. Tomorrow, I'm having Ryan Roberts of A to Z Sports. He's a draft analyst. So I want to get his thoughts on the 49ers draft and just what he likes about the players or what he doesn't like about the players that they brought in. So that will be tomorrow. And then my channel is Steph 49K and my podcast is 49 Carats. So you can find that wherever you get your podcasts. I'm also on Twitter, Steph49K, Instagram, TikTok, all that good stuff. But Larry, thank you so much for having me. This was awesome. This draft process was a really fun one. And I'm glad it's over as well. I'll sleep good.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, my God. Last night, seriously, we grinded so many live streams yesterday. It was amazing. We'll hit a couple of these chats. Invader 49er, yes, I will agree to pay. I said Willie Lampkin would be drafted. He said Willie Lampkin would not be drafted. Willie Lampkin was not drafted. He went to the Rams.
Yeah.
Oh, didn't like that.
The Rams got a couple guys I liked.
I know. The Niners, the Niners, I would have liked to have got a couple more undrafted guys. Says we got Stone Blanton as an undrafted free agent. He's the next Brian Urlacher. Let's ride. Okay. Well, let's hope. No Spaghetti allowed, says Warren Sharp and PFF pan the Niners draft. I did see that. M. Baker says, do you give them a B- because of who they took at the time, or just that these are the players they ended up with at the time in the final overhaul haul? Draft grades are an interesting thing. I do it differently than some people. I just count the number of guys that you get. So if you have a draft where you get one great guy, I usually probably would not have that draft rated very highly, because to me, it's like if you can add 12 football players to your room that are good, then you've had a great draft, because they all help. So I don't know. I like volume in the draft over star power, but I don't typically do a grades thing. If I have recently, it's more just to create some content because I'm running out of ideas. But I don't typically love the day after grades, because there's just so much that goes into it. Like for me, for example, I think I know a lot about the draft. I think I know a lot about college football, but I guarantee you the Niners, Josh Williams, RJ Gillen, Tariq Ahmad, John Lynch, know more about it, right? They're spending more time watching it. So I'd like to hear their reasoning. I mean, they have reasoning for why they like these guys. Yeah. And I try to figure out, what do they see? Like, I liked Stout, the corner, but I mean, I didn't get a chance to meet him, and I think his personality is a big part of what makes him such an incredible player. They got a chance to meet the guys. So, I mean, to me, I will defer to the guys who get a chance to meet these guys. Also, we don't know. There's guys that I think are good players that the Niners probably just don't have on their board, because there may be a bad guy. That's another part of this. We never really find that out. Also, the medical, and then like anything else, I thought Aaron Hernandez should have been like a second-round pick. I couldn't understand why he wasn't. Well, now I kind of know why he wasn't. So, and those guys are privy. The scouts and the teams are privy to NFL security and all that kind of stuff. So, they got a lot goes into it. Couple last ones. Mark T. Engberg. Dieter really hated the day 2 picks. Who should we trust more, John Lynch or a radio bro on YouTube with 2 dying houseplants in the frame? Well, because of the dying houseplants, you got to go with Lynch. Otherwise, I'd go with Dieter. Mark says the Texas run D allowed 2.9 yards per carry when Collins was on the field. Do we know what the number was without him? Yes, it was exactly inverse. It was 9.2 yards per carry without him. No, I have no idea what it was without him, but I did see that stat, Steph. This is your personal favorite player in the draft. I'm really excited about this guy, just simply because if they're right and this guy is big time, this could be the best player on their defense. I mean, I know that sounds a little lofty, but I mean, this guy is so big, so strong, so fast. If he fulfills his potential, he's really high end. I mean, Collins could be an all-pro.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have to sit here convincing all of you. I've been more than complimentary of Collins throughout this process and in this show as well. And so, yeah, I can't wait to see what he does on this team, how Saleh uses him. But at the very least, he's going to improve this run defense, and that is a huge need for the 49ers.
Thanks to Claudaddy Arcades. Thanks to Learn Key Upskill Academy. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors. Hit a like and subscribe on your way out the door. Steph, thanks again for coming on the Krug Show. We'd love to do it again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great Sunday. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've